Welcome to United Jews channel.
So, we already touched on propaganda, and we touched on propaganda of Kremlin in Russia, but we didn't talk about two questions left. Is Trump a Kremlin puppet, and is Fox News acting in the interest of the US, or it is a Kremlin's agent? Who wants to tackle this one?
I'll start with this one. I'll start on this one because this is something that I'm pretty familiar with the situation. Trump is definitely not a Putin puppet. The idea that he is just absolutely ridiculous. The fact that Trump recognizes that Putin is a very smart and cunning individual that needs to be dealt with is somehow supporting Putin is ridiculous. It's like saying, that, Hitler, Hitler's generals were incompetent and they didn't know what they were doing. Well, that's not the case. They were very good generals. They were very, very efficient, very, very well versed in military tactics, and they knew what they were doing. They didn't have, but they had Hitler over them that was, botching everything up. Well, the same thing is true here. We have Putin, who's very, very sharp, and anybody, and Trump recognizes that, and then everybody wants to twist that to think that he supports Putin, and that's ridiculous. The idea that Fox News is supporting Putin or anything is equally as ridiculous. Fox News is an entertainment bureau. The news in general these days is entertainment. It's not news anymore. Walter Cronkite was the last real news person, in my opinion. He told us what happened. We decided what we thought about it. Now they tell us, oh, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is how you should think about it. And by the way, 30 people were killed in Donbass. We are being manipulated by the press. I do not read one source. I don't watch the news. I read the news. I read, BBC, I read CNN, I read Fox News, I read, Newsmax, I read 6 or 7 different sources, and then I talk to people in those areas. Okay, from those places. My fiance is from Kharkiv. The places that I visited are gone now, destroyed. I saw the inside of my apartment from the street in a news broadcast the other day, the apartment where I would stay when I was there. I saw the inside of the apartment from the street. These are things that are happening there. We're not being told what happened. We don't get half of the news here. We get very little of it. In fact, we get very, very little of the actual news of what has actually happened here. We just get the sanitized version. I'd like to get, Ukraine Now. There's a deal on Telegram, Ukraine Now. That's the local news in Ukraine. But you take all of those things, and somewhere in there, you take the little nuggets of truth out of each one of those things, and you can put together a better picture by yourself. Because if you listen to CNN, Trump is Satan, and Putin's, one of his minions, and they're all, in cahoots together. And if you listen to Fox News, you're going to hear one side, you're going to hear CNN do the other side, you're going to hear all different sides, but nobody's going to tell you what happened. And that we as a population in the United States are being manipulated by the press. Absolutely. There is no truth in the media anymore. I can't watch the news anymore. I read the news so I can filter out all the propaganda, all of the things that alleged and could be and should be and may have been, and all of that kind of stuff to do to what actually happened. And you take the what actually happened, and you can verify it with video or with pictures, what actually happened. And then you might have some idea of what the truth is. Other than that, we're just puppets in this whole play ourselves.
Well, Fred, most of us don't have time or resources to to look at 6 or 7 resources and ask witnesses and, all the people who know, who are specialists on the subjects and everything. So what can we do?
I actually spend like about 2 hours a day and 5 different
Wow.
sources consistently. I
Wow.
keep track of everything about the school.
Without that, you can have, unless you spend that time, you cannot actually, one thing I want to add to what just Fred mentioned, in my opinion, journalists used to be the people who will bring you the facts.
Right.
And then you make a decision what to think. Now, when you turn on, I don't even watch the news, but every now and then when my son turns on the news in the morning, they tell you what to think. So this is what I call the brainwash propaganda. And unfortunately, living in California for the last 30 years, I can tell you it's got from bad to worse. I remember, I would never forgive myself for not being involved as much in my child's school back in the days when she was brainwashed to the teeth. And right now, when I'm working very hard to keep my son away from all that propaganda, because it's horrible. I don't want to go into those details, but it's absolutely horrible. I cannot wait to send my kid away from California, because otherwise, kids here who was born and raised in California and never actually learned to think, they would not be able to survive this world.
Or they will be very disappointed later on in life.
Disappointed is actually very, very soft word, I would say, because it's absolutely ridiculous what's going on at schools today and what we see is going on in this country. But I truly hope there are states outside of California that don't use that propaganda, but instead people learn how to think. But I want to add one more thing to what I believe Fred said. If you guys remember when Trump was actually going through his campaign in 2020, he mentioned so many times that he had an FBI on his back. And everybody was thinking about he's crazy, he's cuckoo. He mentioned so many things back then that right now is proved to be true. And that information was released just recently to show that it was unheard of that presidential candidate had FBI. 7 years they were trying to prove the Steele dossier, right? To show that the Trump was the Putin's puppet. They could not prove anything for 7 years. I don't even understand.
They found out that it was based on completely based on complete fiction.
Exactly. So besides the fact that they found out that Clinton paid for it to make that fiction. And guess what?
Why do people still believe it?
We're still talking about it. Can you imagine? Besides that, we have a proof of all the emails that she destroyed. We have a proof of all the phones that she destroyed. We have a proof that she paid for that fake story. And how come nobody is talking about her being sued?
In the words to quote Hillary Clinton,
exactly.
What difference does it make now? That's kind of the mentality of the liberals. Well, what difference does it make now? And it's
she betrayed our country.
I agree.
She must be in jail. That's the difference.
Well, my situation, and I don't know how many of you know this, but my situation is pretty unique. I used to work as a travel agent, and I would spend a lot of time. I taught in Novosibirsk. I taught business in Novosibirsk, in Akadem Gorodok. And I had an issue. What you're talking about, brainwashing propaganda.
Hold on, I'm sorry. They let you in Akadem Gorodok in Novosibirsk, being American?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure you were in that place?
Yes.
Rina, things have changed since the 90s.
No, I'm sorry. When was that?
This is in the 90s. This was back before Putin was elected, back before he was there.
I can't believe it. I went to the submarine university, and I had really hard time to leave the country. I had to leave all my documents there to disappear. But
I
you're
no,
telling me that they let you in? I'm very surprised.
I've done quite a few things that nobody, believed I could do. Half of the things that I've done because somebody told me I couldn't. But
Wow.
but I did, my grandfather told me something very interesting and he made a very wise statement. He told me once, Fred, you will live a much richer and more fulfilling life if you ask yourself, why not?
Mhm.
At least as often as you ask yourself why. And for years, I'd been talking to this couple, on the internet, in Novosibirsk. They were medical doctors. They were research doctors, physicians in Novosibirsk, and we became very close friends. They actually live in Auckland in New Zealand now, but we became very close, and they kept inviting me to go to Novosibirsk. And I said, one day I finally said, I said, why would I want to go there? Why would I want to go? Finally, one day I said, why not? And so I went, and I met someone there, and we were talking about different things, and she ended up that she was a member of the business department in Academ Gorodok. And she said, we want you, when I came back, she asked me, we'd like you to come and teach business. And I said, my degrees are in counseling and psychology. I don't have a degree in business. She goes, yes, but Fred, we have thousands of people here in Russia with degrees in business. What we don't have is anybody that has any experience in business. And that was something that I brought to the table. So I lectured in, there in Academ Gorodok. And one of the hardest things I had to deal with is this propaganda that you talk about. On a very basic level with my students, I would say something, they would write it down, and that was fact. And I started to notice this, that they would not contest me. They would not debate with me. They would not, if I was saying something, that was questionable, they wouldn't debate it. They wouldn't think. And I finally had to stop, and I had to say, listen, you are not my students. I am your teacher. I am beholden to you. My job is to teach you business. Okay. If you're not learning what I'm teaching, it's my fault. But you cannot just accept what I say. I may say something completely false just to see it, and I started doing that just to see if you're paying attention, and you should contest me at that. Ask me about it. Tell me, why do you think that, and then contest it, because I plan to learn as much from me being here as you do from me. And I said, and it was very difficult for me to get through that barrier to just accept what I said. And that's a situation that, that Russians grow up in their educational system. They are told what to think and what to say, and that's what they do. They write it down in the copybooks, and that's it. And that's the fact. I don't teach that way. I teach very, in a very different way. I want people to argue with me, to debate with me, to do that. And in fact, I up until I got sick, I had, a program where I would do that. Every week I would have a program when I would invite people to come and discuss with me politics. Okay. And I valued the dissenting view. And that's something we don't do here in this country. We want everybody to agree with it. It's come to the point now with a lot of my friends, if I don't agree with them, I'm racist.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
I'm Latino.
Right.
My name is Gutierrez. I'm Latino. My family founded Monterrey, and it was founding of the country there, in Monterrey and Saltillo in Mexico. But but this is my home, and that's the way we have to think. We have to do these things. Now, fortunately for me, and unfortunately and fortunately, I got very, very sick. And I am now bedbound. I cannot get out of bed. I'm paralyzed from the knees down. I have no feeling below my knees, and I've got some, health problems. So I'm here 24/7. I am in my bed 24/7, and I've managed to access the internet, through, I do this on my screen, and I'm trying to get back into streaming again. Probably happen in the next month or two, but I have the opportunity. But Dmitry has to devote, and I admire him very greatly for this, because he devotes 2 hours of his day in which he can do all kinds of other things to learning what's happening in the world. Okay, I don't have anything but time. Okay, I'm completely disabled. I can't leave. My room is a 10 by 10. My world is 10 by 10 room. Okay, and so
Fred, well, thank you for being here. Thank you so much, because I think this is the value that you bring, your experience. With your time that you have, you actually learn things. And you can bring your perspectives that others can't bring because they don't have that time. And they just listen to one channel, whatever they...
We have to,
blah, 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 same thing every day.
As a people, as intelligent people, we have to take things and we have to examine them critically. We have to, everything that we see and everything that we read and everything that we hear, we have to examine critically to get to the truth, because otherwise we're just being manipulated.
As much as I agree with you, I just wanted to say that yes, we trusted whatever the government was saying, but based on all the things that happened to our families and all the dictatorship, we kind of figured out that we shouldn't completely believe everything that the government says. So we question, and all Russian-speaking people, when they hear things here, on the news, they just don't trust automatically, because we have that. We already were born with this. Our parents kind of went through this, and grandparents went through this, that not everything you hear could be 100% truth, just because, the human experiment we had in USSR.
I'd like to add that even if you understand propaganda, it's not necessarily you're free from its influence. And I saw that on the example of my mom, who I evacuated from Ukraine into the US last year. And so she thought that she wasn't under influence of propaganda, and she knew that America is a great country, despite what Soviets were telling. But after a month in America, she shared so many compliments about, every aspect of life here, that she's super surprised. She didn't really realize that how kind are the people, and how well is the infrastructure, the nature, how many trees in the cities, and everything, the roads and infrastructure, and the variety of things in the stores. She blew her mind. So despite thinking that she wasn't under influence of propaganda, she actually was.
And that's a very common issue. That's a very common issue with people that are coming from other places. They have this completely distorted view of, and it's true of people here thinking of other countries. What people think about Russia, that are from here, from the United States, that have never been there, they don't understand what it's like. They don't understand. The people in Novosibirsk, when I was in Novosibirsk, the people of Siberia were the most incredibly friendly and welcoming people I've ever known. I would, I was the piece to the grinder. I was making hamburgers. I'm going to make chili. So I went to the market and bought a bunch of meat and got the grinder, but I had the wrong blade for the grinder. And one of the girls that was there said, "Oh, I'll go get one for you. I'll go get one." And I said, "Do you live close by here?" She goes, No. I just went to your neighbor and asked her for one. And I don't, I'd never met my neighbor. And then she said, "Oh yeah, I just knocked on the door and they had one, so they let me have it." And and stuff. People would pick you up on the side of the road if you were walking. It just, people were very, very friendly, very, very friendly and wonderful people. Now they can't afford to buy medicine for the things, but the view that we have in the United States of other countries is just as distorted as a view that people from other countries have in the United States. And we have to be mindful of that, because everybody is influenced by propaganda, and everybody's influenced by what they heard. It's just really disheartening. This is the value of as a travel agent. When I started working as a travel agent, this is the value of travel, to go and see the places that you hear about, in the history books. to see the places and meet the people and experience for yourself. It's not Dr. Zhivago, you know, when you go to Siberia. It's not, you know, the frozen tundra. You know, it's you know, it's a very metropolitan area.
There was
And
no
the bears are not on the
there was
streets.
no white bears on the street.
Uh, you know, let's all hope then when Ukraine is free and the war is over, we'll all go to Ukraine and see what it's about.
That's actually my plan. I want to travel all those key places.
I've been to so many, and I really want to live. I want to buy a cabin on the Prut River, there near Bukovel, near Bukovel, and just, you know, and go fishing in the river. That's what I want to do. It's beautiful there. It's just absolutely beautiful there.
Wonderful.